Have you ever wondered what really goes through a woman's mind when she sees that you've finally moved on? Not just pretending, not posting fake smiles on social media. I mean, when she truly senses, deep down, that you're not broken anymore, that you're not checking your phone, waiting for her name to pop up, that you're not orbiting around her existence anymore. It's strange, right? Why is it that when you finally stop chasing, suddenly, she starts noticing? Today we're going to break it all down, but not in a cheap, manipulative way. No. We're going deep into the ancient wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers to ever live, to reveal exactly how a woman feels when she sees you've moved on, and why this might be the single most powerful move you can make. Not for revenge, not for ego, but for your freedom. And if you stay till the end, I promise, it could shift your entire life forever. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and like this video if you're serious about mastering yourself and understanding women on a deeper level. And don't skip, because missing even one of these Marcus Aurelius insights might mean repeating the same relationship mistakes over and over. Alright, let's build this from the ground up. Story time. Let me tell you a story about a man named Julian. Julian had been with the same woman for 4 years. She was his everything, or so he thought. She left not with a fight, not with screaming, but with silence. She simply drifted, and that silence was louder than any argument. At first, Julian tried everything. Texting, calling, posting pictures with fake happiness, hoping she'd notice. But nothing worked. The more he tried, the more invisible he became to her. Then one day, something changed. It wasn't overnight. It was slow, like the turning of seasons. Julian stumbled upon the works of Marcus Aurelius, and one particular quote stuck with him. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. It hit him like a brick. He realized that all this energy spent trying to prove his worth to her was wasted energy. What if, instead, he actually became the man she thought she was leaving for? And that brings us to 10 Stoic suggestions from Marcus Aurelius, ones that don't just change how you feel, but how others perceive you, including her. Let's break them down. 1. Master your inner dialogue. Have you ever stayed up at 2 a.m., staring at your phone, wondering why someone who once claimed to love you could now act like you never existed? It's a heavy feeling, isn't it? That weight on your chest, scrolling through old photos, replaying conversations, asking yourself, what did I do wrong? Or worse, why wasn't I enough? If you've ever been there, you're not alone. See, Julian, the man I mentioned earlier, was right there too, and honestly, so was I once. That's why I'm sharing this with you, not from a mountain of perfection, but from the trenches of real experience. But here's the truth no one talks about. The real damage doesn't come from what she said, or even from the breakup itself. It comes from what you start saying to yourself afterward. That's where most men lose the battle, not in the breakup, but in their own minds afterward. Julian used to wake up every morning with the same thought looping in his head. Maybe if I was more successful. Maybe if I looked better. Maybe if I texted her the right way, she'd come back. Sound familiar? Now here's the plot twist. That inner voice is a liar. Marcus Aurelius said it best. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. What he meant was this. You don't control what she thinks about you, but you absolutely control what you think about yourself. Let's make this personal. Right now, think about your last heartbreak. Do you remember how it felt? Do you remember the first time she pulled away? That gut feeling you ignored, hoping things would go back to the way they used to be? That voice in your head started whispering doubts about who you are. That's not love talking, that's fear. And fear is the worst advisor you can have in your life. Julian didn't start winning because he got lucky. He started winning the moment he flipped that inner voice. Instead of waking up thinking, why doesn't she want me? He started waking up asking, how can I become a man I respect? Whether she notices or not, that was the shift. And I want you to feel that too. Because here's what happens when you change your inner dialogue. You stop sending late-night texts hoping for closure. You stop stalking her social media looking for signs she misses you. You stop trying to prove your worth to someone who already walked away. And do you know what happens when you do that? She notices. Not because you're playing games, but because your energy feels different. You're no longer orbiting her world. You're building your own. So I'll ask you now, what story are you telling yourself about who you are? Because the breakup didn't break you. Your own thoughts did. And if you change that, you change everything. To detach from outcome. Have you ever caught yourself doing things, not because you wanted to, but just hoping she'd notice? Maybe you started going to the gym, not because you loved it, but because you secretly hoped she'd see your new photos. Maybe you posted that having fun picture on Instagram, not because you were happy, but because you wanted her to wonder, is he over me? It happens to almost every man after heartbreak. We don't always chase her, but we chase the outcome of making her care again. Julian, our guy from earlier, made this mistake too. A few months after his breakup, Julian was crushing it in the gym, fixing his style, even starting his own side business. But here's the thing, it wasn't real. Not yet. It was all secretly powered by the same thought. If I level up enough, she'll come back. Sound familiar? But then, something wild happened. He came across a quote from Marcus Aurelius that flipped his entire thinking. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. What does that mean? It means that it's not her leaving that's breaking you. It's your attachment to the outcome you wanted. You're suffering because you wrote a story in your head like this. I'll love her, she'll love me back, we'll be happy, the world will be right. And when that story breaks, you break with it. But here's the secret. When you detach from outcome, you take your power back. Think about this. Have you ever wanted something so badly that the wanting itself became painful? That's attachment. But the moment you stop needing that outcome, the energy flips. Julian stopped working out for her. He stopped building his business for her. He stopped posting for her. He started doing it because he wanted to. Become a man that he admired, even if no one was watching, even if she never came back, even if she was with someone else. And do you know what happened next? That's when she messaged him. It's funny, right? The moment you stop chasing, the moment you stop needing, that's when they feel your absence the most. It's not about playing games. It's about becoming a man who's no longer driven by the need for external validation. And let me say this to you now. If you're only improving your life to prove something to her, you're still attached. You're still a prisoner of the past. But when you detach, truly detach, you win whether she notices or not. Let me ask you again, what are you really chasing? Is it her? Or is it the feeling you wanted her to give you? Detach from the outcome, and I promise, you'll start to feel a strength you forgot you had. 3. Focus on purpose, not people. When was the last time you were so focused on your mission in life that you actually forgot to check your phone for her texts? Be honest. Most of us, especially after a breakup, fall into this quiet, painful trap. We start living for people instead of living for purpose. And that's exactly what happened to Julian. After his breakup, everything he did, what he wore, what he posted, even the way he walked into a room, was secretly designed for one thing: attention from her. Not love, not peace, not growth, just attention. And let me tell you something hard but true. When you live for people, you die by their approval. Julian was stuck in that cycle until he found another Marcus Aurelius gem that snapped him awake. Stop whatever you're doing for a moment and ask yourself, am I afraid of death because I won't be able to do this anymore? What does that even mean? Marcus was talking about purpose, your mission, your life's work. He was basically asking, if you knew you only had a short time left on this earth, is this what you'd be spending your time doing? And that question hit Julian like a punch to the gut. Would he really want to waste his short life chasing someone else's approval? Someone who left? Someone who didn't see his full value? That's when things changed. He didn't start going to the gym to impress her. He started going because he wanted to feel strong. When he looked in the mirror, not for a photo, but for him, he didn't build his business to make her jealous. He built it because he wanted the freedom that money brings, freedom to live on his terms. And that's when life started bending in his favor. Here's the twist most men don't understand. When you shift from chasing people to chasing purpose, the whole energy around you changes. Do you know why? Because women don't really want a man who makes her the center of his universe. They want a man who has his own universe and invites her along for the ride. Purpose makes you magnetic. And I want you to think about your life right now. What are you building? What are you creating? What's your mission outside of her? Because here's the truth. If you don't have a mission, You'll end up chasing people, hoping they'll give you one. And that's why they leave. No one wants to be someone's only reason for living. But when you have a mission bigger than love, ironically, that's when love shows up. Julian didn't have to post about his business. People could feel it in his energy. And as for his ex, she didn't know what to say anymore. He wasn't orbiting her world. He was building his own. So, what's yours? 4. Emotional control over reaction. Have you ever sent that one text? The one you knew you shouldn't have sent, but you sent it anyway because your emotions were running wild? Maybe it was late at night. Maybe you were feeling lonely. Maybe you wanted to make her feel something, guilt, regret, longing, anything. And then after sending it, you sat there, staring at your phone like it held the meaning of life itself. If you've done that, I get it. I've done it too. And guess what? So did Julian. Julian was doing great for a while, working out, building his projects, slowly getting his confidence back. But then one night he saw a post of her out with another guy, and that old emotional storm started to brew inside him. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. His heart raced. He was ready to type something sharp, something clever, maybe a jab disguised as a joke, something that would make her remember what she lost. But right before he hit send, he remembered something that stopped him cold. A quote from Marcus Aurelius: "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." Right then, Julian realized something powerful. The moment you let your emotions run wild, you become exactly the man she expects you to be. The weak version. The broken version. The emotional version. Think about that for a second. When a woman leaves or pulls away, part of her expects you to fall apart. To chase, to beg, to react. That reaction feeds her ego. It confirms to her that she still has power over you. But what happens when you don't react? When you see her with someone else and stay calm? When you get that random "Hey stranger" text at midnight and don't instantly reply with your heart in your throat? I'll tell you what happens. You break the pattern she's used to. You shift from being a predictable emotional mess to being a mystery she can't figure out. And mystery drives people crazy. Not because you're playing games, but because you've built real emotional control. Julian didn't ghost her. He didn't play childish silent treatment games. He just responded like a man who had better things to focus on. Not because he was pretending, but because he genuinely did have better things to focus on himself. Here's what I want you to understand. Emotional control isn't about ignoring how you feel. It's about refusing to let someone else control how you feel. And I want you to think right now, who's been controlling your emotions lately? Is it you or is it her? Are you leading your life or just reacting to hers? Because once you truly master your reactions, you don't just take your dignity back, you take your entire life back. 5. Your value doesn't decrease based on someone's failure to see it. Have you ever felt like you gave someone your whole heart and they just treated it like it was nothing? You gave them loyalty. You gave them effort. You gave them love. And in return, they gave you confusion, silence, maybe even betrayal. And after all that, you probably started asking yourself the worst question of all. What's wrong with me? Julian asked himself that exact question too. When his ex left, he felt like a failure, not just in love, but as a man. He kept replaying the relationship in his head like a bad movie, wondering, where did I fall short? Why wasn't I enough for her? But then, one night while reading Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, he came across a single quote that completely broke that destructive thought cycle. Because a thing seems difficult for you, do not think it impossible for anyone to accomplish. What did that mean for Julian? And what does it mean for you right now? It means this. Just because someone couldn't love you properly doesn't mean you were unlovable. It means her failure to see your value says more about her vision than your worth. Think about it. Have you ever seen someone sell a priceless diamond for the price of glass because they didn't know what they were holding? Does that make the diamond worthless? Of course not. It only means they didn't have the eyes to see it. That's what happened with Julian's ex, and probably what's happening in your life right now. But here's the most dangerous thing about heartbreak. It tricks you into becoming blind to your own value. You start agreeing with someone else's small vision of you. You shrink yourself to fit their rejection. You lower your standards thinking, that reaction feeds her ego. It confirms to her that she still has power over you. But what happens when you don't react? When you see her with someone else and stay calm? When you get that random "Hey stranger" text at midnight and don't instantly reply with your heart in your throat? I'll tell you what happens. You break the pattern she's used to. You shift from being a predictable emotional mess to being a mystery she can't figure out. And mystery drives people crazy. Not because you're playing games, but because you've built real emotional control. Julian didn't ghost her. He didn't play childish silent treatment games. He just responded like a man who had better things to focus on. Not because he was pretending, but because he genuinely did have better things to focus on himself. Here's what I want you to understand. Emotional control isn't about ignoring how you feel. It's about refusing to let someone else control how you feel. And I want you to think right now, who's been controlling your emotions lately? Is it you or is it her? Are you leading your life or just reacting to hers? Because once you truly master your reactions, you don't just take your dignity back, you take your entire life back. 5. Your value doesn't decrease based on someone's failure to see it. Have you ever felt like you gave someone your whole heart, and they just treated it like it was nothing? You gave them loyalty, you gave them effort, you gave them love, and in return they gave you confusion, silence, maybe even betrayal. And after all that, you probably started asking yourself the worst question of all. What's wrong with me? Julian asked himself that exact question too. When his ex left, he felt like a failure, not just in love, but as a man. He kept replaying the relationship in his head like a bad movie, wondering, where did I fall short? Why wasn't I enough for her? But then, one night while reading Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, he came across a single quote that completely broke that destructive thought cycle. Because a thing seems difficult for you, do not think it impossible for anyone to accomplish. What did that mean for Julian? And what does it mean for you right now? It means this. Just because someone couldn't love you properly doesn't mean you were unlovable. It means her failure to see your value says more about her vision than your worth. Think about it. Have you ever seen someone sell a priceless diamond for the price of glass because they didn't know what they were holding? Does that make the diamond worthless? Of course not. It only means they didn't have the eyes to see it. That's what happened with Julian's ex, and probably what's happening in your life right now. But here's the most dangerous thing about heartbreak. It tricks you into becoming blind to your own value. You start agreeing with someone else's small vision of you. You shrink yourself to fit their rejection. You lower your standards thinking, maybe this is all I deserve. And that's a lie. One of the most powerful Stoic truths is this. No one, not even the person you love the most, gets to decide your value. You do. Julian didn't have to beg for her love. He didn't have to post quotes about knowing your worth or act fake confident online. All he had to do was quietly become the kind of man he admired. Someone he would respect even if no one was clapping for him yet. And you know what? That self-respect radiated through his actions. He didn't have to say a word. Here's my question to you. Are you measuring your worth by how someone else treated you, or by who you know you're meant to be? Because once you realize that someone's inability to love you is their limitation, not yours, you stop chasing explanations, and you start chasing excellence. 6. Mystery over explanation. Have you ever felt this burning need to explain yourself to someone who walked away? Like, if you could just find the right words, maybe she'd finally understand. Maybe she'd finally realize what she lost. Maybe she'd regret it. Maybe she'd come back. Julian thought the same way after his breakup. He drafted paragraphs explaining himself. Thought about writing long texts about what went wrong, how much he really loved her, how misunderstood he felt. He rehearsed conversations in his head that would never happen. It's one of the deepest traps men fall into after heartbreak. We think more words will equal more understanding. But that's not how it works, not with attraction, not with love, not with life. And then Julian came across a powerful quote by Marcus Aurelius that changed the whole game. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Read that again. You don't need to tell anyone how valuable you are. You don't need to explain why you deserve love, loyalty, or respect. You just be it quietly, calmly, with power. Here's why that works. When you try to explain yourself to someone who's already made up their mind, you're not convincing them. You're chasing closure that they don't even want to give you. Worse, you're training them to believe that their opinion of you matters more than your opinion of yourself. Julian learned that the hard way. One day, after nearly sending another one of those long, "please understand me" messages, he stopped. He looked in the mirror and asked himself, am I trying to prove something to her? or to myself. And that's when it hit him. The real closure comes when you stop needing it from other people and give it to yourself. But here's the plot twist, and this happens more often than you'd expect. The less you explain, the more they wonder. Human nature is funny like that. We're wired to chase things we don't fully understand. The moment you stop explaining, you become a mystery. And mystery is magnetic, not just to her, but to everyone. Think about it. Why are some of the most interesting people you've ever met the ones who don't tell you everything about themselves all at once? It's because they carry an energy that says, I don't need you to validate me. I know who I am. That's what Julian stepped into. He didn't post sad quotes. He didn't write essays about how misunderstood he was. He just built his life and let the silence speak louder than words. Let me ask you, are you explaining or are you embodying? Because the moment you stop needing to explain your worth is the moment you finally start living your worth. And when that happens, they feel the difference even if they never say it out loud. Again, never chase beauty, let it chase you. Have you ever found yourself chasing someone, not because of who they were, but because of how they looked? Maybe deep down you knew they weren't right for you. Maybe you ignored red flags, excused bad behavior, tolerated disrespect, all because they were beautiful. It's one of the oldest mistakes men make, not just chasing love, but chasing beauty. And that's exactly what Julian was doing with his ex. Even after she left, even after she ignored his messages, even after she started talking to someone else, he was still obsessed with her image. Not who she was as a person, but the idea of her beauty. The fantasy he'd built in his own mind. Then one day, everything shifted because of one powerful realization from Marcus Aurelius. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Think about that for a second. If you spend your days thinking about her, chasing her, obsessing over her beauty, you are literally painting your life in the colors of lack, of desperation, of emptiness. Julian finally realized this. The more you chase beauty, the more you abandon yourself. That hit hard. He saw it in the gym. Guys lifting weights not for strength, but for attention. He saw it online. Guys buying cars, watches, expensive clothes, not for passion, but for approval. The chasing energy is weak. And worst of all, it doesn't even work. Here's the paradox most guys never learn. When you stop chasing beauty, beauty starts chasing you. And I'm not just talking about physical beauty, I'm talking about the beauty of life itself. Opportunities, friendships, respect, and yes, women. Why? Because when you stop orbiting around beauty like a desperate satellite, you become the center of your own world, and that is magnetic. Julian didn't need to flex online. He didn't need to post thirst traps or try to make his ex jealous. He became the kind of man that beauty wanted to orbit. And that's when it happened. One day his ex commented on one of his posts, not with words, but with silence, just a like. No explanation. No apology. Just a quiet signal of curiosity. It was almost funny to him at that point. The man who used to beg for attention now stood in quiet confidence, uninterested in chasing, completely fulfilled in his own growth. And I want to ask you right now, are you chasing or are you building? Because if you're chasing beauty, you're running away from your own greatness. But if you build yourself, your mind, your purpose, your strength, beauty will notice. It can't help but notice. And here's the wild part. When beauty finally starts chasing you, you'll look at it differently. You'll realize you don't want it out of desperation anymore, but out of choice. That's real power. 8. Respect yourself first. When was the last time you truly respected yourself? Not for what you had, but for who you were becoming. Most men don't realize this until it's too late. You teach the world how to treat you by how you treat yourself. Julian had to learn this lesson the hard way. After his breakup, he did what a lot of guys do. He put her on a pedestal. He thought, if I just show her how loyal I am, how good of a man I am, she'll come back. She'll see I'm different. But you know what? That's not self-respect. That's self-abandonment. It wasn't until Julian read this quote from Marcus Aurelius that everything finally made sense. It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live. Julian wasn't afraid of losing her. He was afraid of losing himself. And that's exactly what he'd done. How often have you done that? How often have you tolerated disrespect, ignored your gut feelings, or lowered your standards just to keep someone? How many times have you told yourself, it's okay, maybe I'm just overreacting? When deep down you knew you deserved better. Self-respect isn't loud. It's not about proving anything to anyone. It's a quiet decision made in those moments when no one is watching. Julian started asking himself different questions. Why am I working out? For her? Or for me? Why am I chasing success? To prove I'm good enough for her? Or to prove to myself I won't waste this life I've been given? Am I living my life for love? Or for freedom? And once he started choosing himself, things changed fast. The texts from his ex? They didn't hit the same way anymore. The games people used to play with him? They didn't work anymore. Why? Because he finally realized something most men don't. The relationship you have with yourself is the foundation for every relationship you'll ever have with anyone else. When you respect yourself, you don't argue with people who don't deserve your energy. You don't chase someone who clearly doesn't see your value. You don't tolerate disrespect because you've built too much inside to need cheap approval outside. And here's the beautiful part. When a woman sees a man who respects himself, not arrogantly, not bitterly, but quietly, it changes everything. It makes her question what she lost. It makes her wonder how she ever thought she could walk away from someone like that. But by then, you won't need her to see it, because the most powerful love story is the one you build between you and you. So I'll ask you, do you respect yourself, or are you still waiting for someone else to give you permission to? Attraction isn't given, it's earned. Have you ever caught yourself thinking, I was good to her, why didn't she love me back? Maybe you treated her better than any guy ever had. Maybe you gave her attention, support, time, loyalty. And yet, she still drifted. Still lost interest. Still stopped appreciating what you gave. And that leaves you with that empty question. Why wasn't that enough? Julian wrestled with this exact question after his breakup. He thought, but I was kind. I was faithful. I gave her everything. Why did she leave? And then he read one of the coldest but most powerful truths from Marcus Aurelius. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. At first that confused him. What does that have to do with attraction? But then it hit him. Rejection isn't the enemy, it's the invitation to level up. And here's what most men don't realize. Attraction isn't given to you just because you're a nice guy. It's earned by who you become. Being good isn't enough. Being safe isn't enough. Women are not attracted to men because they're nice. They're attracted to strength. Not just physical strength, but emotional strength, mental strength, strength of character. Julian realized he wasn't rejected because he was bad. He was rejected because he had stopped growing. He had become predictable, comfortable, boring. Not because he lacked love, but because he lacked purpose and edge. Here's what I want you to think about right now. When was the last time you scared yourself a little with your own ambition? When was the last time you pushed harder at the gym, harder in your business, harder in your mind, not for revenge, not for ego, but just to see what you're capable of? That's how attraction works. It's earned by the man who's willing to suffer more, grow more, discipline himself more, and become something rare in a world full of easy distractions. Julian didn't magically become more attractive to his ex because he bought new clothes or posted cool pictures. No, he became attractive again because his energy changed. It wasn't fake. It wasn't for show. It was earned through nights spent working on his mind, his body, his mission when no one was clapping for him. And here's the beautiful part. By the time she noticed, he didn't need her to. That's the paradox. When you need attraction, you don't have it. When you earn attraction, you don't even chase it anymore. And that's when people start chasing you. So I'll ask you now, are you sitting around waiting for someone to realize your worth, or are you going out and earning it every single day? 10. Memento mori. Remember death. Let me ask you a question most people are too afraid to face. What if you don't get another chance to fix this life? What if the texts you're sending, the stalking, the worrying, the heartbreak, the what-ifs, all of it is stealing the only life you'll ever have? It's uncomfortable, right? But that's exactly why the Stoics embraced memento mori. Remember that you must die, not to be dark, not to make life depressing, but to wake up. Julian didn't get this at first either. He was wasting months replaying memories of his ex, like reruns of a bad movie, hoping the ending would change if he just watched it enough times. One night, everything changed for him when he read this brutal line from Marcus Aurelius. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. Julian sat there, staring at that sentence, realizing something terrifying. If I died tomorrow, is this how I wanted to spend my last days? Chasing someone who doesn't care, crying over someone who chose to leave? That's when something inside him snapped, and maybe you've felt this before too. It's that moment when heartbreak stops feeling sad and starts feeling offensive. It's offensive to your soul. It's offensive to your purpose. It's offensive to the life you've been given, because you realize, why am I wasting this short, precious life on someone who's not even thinking about me? Here's what Julian finally understood, and what I want you to understand too. Memento mori doesn't make life smaller, it makes life urgent. When you carry the truth of your death on your shoulder, you don't have time to chase people who don't respect you. You don't have time to lower your standards for temporary attention. You don't have time to water dead plants hoping they'll bloom again. You've got one life. That's it. And here's the paradox. When you live like that, like you don't have time for games, people start noticing you more. You become rare, focused, intense, purpose-driven. Julian didn't become powerful by accident. He became powerful because he lived like a man with nothing to lose. Because in reality, we're all running out of time. Let me ask you this directly. If this was your last year alive, would you really spend it chasing people who don't want to be caught? Or would you spend it building the strongest, sharpest, most dangerous version of yourself you've ever seen? That's why we remember death, not to be afraid, but to stop being afraid of the wrong things. Stop fearing rejection. Stop fearing being alone. Start fearing wasted time. Because that's the one thing you'll never get back. The final shift. 1 year later, Julian wasn't the same man. He wasn't bitter. He wasn't playing games. He was simply living fully, honestly, unapologetically. And as for her, she didn't know what to say anymore. He was no longer hers to hurt. So I'll ask you, who are you chasing? What are you delaying in your life by staying stuck on someone who's already chosen to leave? You can't control how she feels about you now, but you can control the man you become when she finally realizes you're gone for good. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.